Polly, you're up.
You're up?
I know. All right. Few people have impacted freestyle play as much as the remarkable Oalkeigh. His methodical climb up the all-time major title list, his stint as the former FPA president, his run of great jammers tournaments in his adopted home of Jacksonville, Florida, and his mentoring of new players from around the world put him in elite company. But he's probably best known for his infectious love of his friends, which grow with each passing year. Polly.
About 69 props, but I'm only going to share one right now.
Come on. Okay, plastic. Somebody got a vacuum?
This is your Jam is Waiting award for the whole Santa Barbara crew. You guys get to decide how to deliver it to anybody you want to that comes into town or just in their name only. I'd like to give it to Gus for tonight.
Yeah, that's good.
He hosted a lot of us, and the party last night was incredible. Okay, I got a speech here. Okay, so I started out as a child. Okay, so everybody knows what Frisbee means, right? Freestyle reveals imagination, spirit, beauty, and emotional expression. It's a phrase I really love and try to live by. So just, you can use that as you will. I'll just try to go through some quick history of how I got to this point. And the first was Eckerd College. Some of the people there, Lance Lubin was the first guy I ever saw. I think he's PDGA number like 238 or something, but he was a freestyler there in the Jens and Irwin mold. And I'm watching from my dorm room, and I'm watching this guy, and it freaked me out because I was a basketball player, spinning it on my finger, doing all that stuff. And to this day, I've never met him. I just know him from Facebook, and he still freaks out that he's the primary motivation for me getting in the sport. And a couple players then, Chuck Bava and Will Moore were kind of my first partners at Eckerd, and nobody knows who they are, but they mean the world to me, and they're important to all of you because they got me into it. Is there any like fast forward noises? Okay. Move on to like 1989. I finally moved to Florida and kind of rediscovered freestyle. You know, like I said, I spun it around. I was the Frisbee guy, and I didn't know there was this other world out there. I didn't have the internet and never met anybody else except occasional sporadic run into like Rick Williams and Judy Robbins I met at a Museum of Science in Boston.
NIFA!
Yeah, NIFA, exactly. But that was like 84, and then it was when I finally got to Jack's Beach, that's where I kind of met Lawrence, Dan, Buddy, Peepo, Ted, and Frizz. And those were the first inspirational guys I know. And my game is based on multiple disc stuff and turnovers is kind of probably the root of what my skill set differentiated me in some way. And all the turnover stuff I got from Frizz, and then took it to wherever I could, tried to steroid it up a little bit. But the multiple disc stuff came from Gary and Brian's routine, where Brian just did this move with two discs. He's got a disc in one hand, and he's doing a spin, double spin. He exchanges hands just naturally, organically, and pulls it out the other way and does this and that. And it's like, wow, you can do something with multiple discs. And really, all he did was a move with whatever hand was there, but he was able to motor his hand and move the disc around to another hand. And then I tried to steroid that up and actually try to catch a couple discs together, maybe more and stuff. And I found a technique that did that. And so anything that came unique for me came from that. And it reminds me of you know, like Larry has like one of the most unique games out there. And he'll always have partners because in the bandwidth of putting a routine together, you know, Larry's always going to bring this odd character of flavor to a routine, to maybe with a traditional jammer. And then you got a Larry, so the spectrum of moves you're going to get in a team is broader. And I tried, you know, I didn't have the physical skills, so I tried to come up with my own way of trying to be like Larry, only my way. So the early competitions, like way before I was ready, I got asked to play pairs with Two-Man in Sweden, and I went out there and we did like a 3-day boot camp of putting together this routine that ended up really being amazing. And semifinals, we crushed it, dog. We crushed it. It was awesome, and I just wasn't prepared to win finals yet. And then the next year, Randy asked me to be his co-op partner with Yarnell. And, you know, and then we did like a 4-day boot camp. And, you know, between those two players, the difficulty, you know, more difficulty, but still artistic, but difficulty, and the AI-centric kind of Randy type of thing, I tried to embrace both characters into how I put routines together and tried to put my own flavor on it. But I always really believe in that boot camp way of doing it, and like putting 3 or 4 days together where you're waking up in the morning, you're you know, you're going out and practicing in the afternoon, then you're watching the videos at night, but you're in a fully immersive way of putting a routine together. And it served well because I loved traveling the world, and it allowed me the freedom to have partners from anywhere in the world and be able to, in a very short term, put something together that can be competitive versus somebody that maybe lives more close to each other. And I really want to thank you guys for what you've meant to me. I love you guys too. You know what you mean. And obviously Larry is the, you know, kind of one of the guys that I just love. He's done so much for me. He just brought me under his wing. He said, "Come on to Paganello. You'll love it." And so me and Pipo, we're kind of somewhat steady partners. So we're going over there and we're going to play together. And Larry goes, "Hey, maybe I'll play with you guys. I'll let you know. I'm trying to find a better partner, but if I can't find him." And you know Larry, he's like that. So he takes us under his wing there, and he finally does say he'll play with us. And we're like, "Oh boy, Larry's going to play with us." So we go to Paganello, and I think it was '99, and they had this, you know, at the time, the real move I had was machine gun. And we have the party at the disco, and we've got to play like 11 or 12 at night. And, you know, I'm almost like any of us that came from America were celebrities at Paganello. But that first night at the disco, we had this song, Desire by U2. When it kicked in, I'm supposed to do machine gun. I did my first tip. The crowd went nuts. It's a bunch of drunk Ultimate players at midnight. And I just dropped it and didn't know what to do. But that gave me motivation to figure out how to play at midnight the next few years at Paga. But we definitely went to Paga year after year. You know, I was kind of a up-and-comer until that point. And then I started to get pretty good, and, you know, Cheryl was kind of like at first, "I don't know if I like this Frisbee stuff." But then when I started to get a little better, she's like, "You better get better at this Frisbee stuff because it's taking us all over the world."
There you go, Cheryl.
You know, and you know, meeting Louie and Clay changed my life. Louie belongs in the Hall of Fame, and she gets, you know, whenever she qualifies. So, you know, then I'm in my 40s at this point, and I won my first 4 world titles in my 40s, and figured, well, that's pretty good for being an old guy. You know, Lori was talking about, you know, blooming late. Well, I was a late bloomer as well. And I figured, well, at that point, I've done good. I was executive director for one stint in the early 2000s when we first brought Worlds to Rimini. And by the way, that reminds me of my second prop. I actually have 69, but I can't use them because there's no lighting. Well, anyways, in 2002, we decided to have Worlds in Rimini. And so I bought a 2002 bottle of Brunello that I'd like to break with Larry, Oalkeigh, and anybody else who likes really good wine. Bob Bowler, maybe, because his mom did a nice painting from there that we bought. Then, turning 15, I figured, well, it's just time to give back to the kids. And so James and Daniel asked me to play with them. Well, they weren't that bright then. They hadn't graduated Columbia. And, all they asked was, hey, they liked the routines I put together. I always thought about music first and script backwards from the big notes and try to put something beautiful together, but it always started with the music. And we ended up with this unbelievable choice in music. And I remember James saying, James being James, you're showing us the keys to the kingdom. I'm going to come back after this, and we're just going to kick your ass from here on in. And then he did, He wasn't wrong. But James is one of the most inspirational players in the world. But Daniel is to me, I told James this. James, you're probably the best player in the world, but I love Daniel's game. They're just two beautiful people, and I love you guys. And then there's Mehrdad Hosseini, I've ended up playing with him in 2015, and that was amazing to play with him. We did a long boot camp. He was just a very honorable guy, and we ended up. I don't know if it's really, truth or not, but it is the only perfect execution score in FPA World's history. Playing with him in 2015, so I'm pretty proud of that. I know James and Mehrdad seemed to do this dropless stuff. He had one in 2019 where the disc kind of hit the gym floor, and it's James's fault. It was Riley O'Neill going up, and James said, anything that happens there, you deduct. And so Riley goes, James, you're the one who told him to deduct that .1 when it touched the ground. So I got to hang on to that claim. But then, doing the second stint as president, or executive director president, the proudest thing I have of that was the World Urban Games, which was the hardest thing I've ever done, putting that on with Skippy. We trying to get all these players, all these countries, getting all their passports, and then getting at the tournament site, and having the script to the second everything you're doing, because you're on like a full television program. It's live. You got to end at this perfect time. You got to start at this perfect time. The tempo was just like clockwork. And, oh my God, it was unbelievable, and it was intense. And then I think we pulled it off without a hitch. We pulled it off. All of us did. The whole group. All of us got a chance to just be staff and let the players jam, and it was just beautiful. And we thought we had the springboard, and then the pandemic hit, and at that point, just felt like I just wanted to, bridge us to get past that, and hopefully that the sport would continue and find its way back onto its path, which I think it's actually done, because Milan was a magnificent event and just a beautiful reunion. Jammers I've put on for a number of years, and it's now changed to the Jam. The pandemic kind of caused us to, can we do a competition or not? And so I did a spontaneous last thing for James's 30th birthday, which he basically insisted that I do for him. He said, you're doing it, I'm coming, and I'm bringing Murph with me. So then we called up a whole bunch of other people, and he ended up having probably the best birthday party anybody ever had. So now it's the Jam, and it will continue on in some form. So I'm very proud of that tournament been going on for as long as it did. Some quick final thoughts. it kind of comes and goes, but bro, got to stay with something I threw out there that was pretty cool. Fun fact, I'm Furious-Sanda's godfather. Let's see. Clay, I believe Clay and I are the oldest pairs world champions ever at age 56. I asked Siller how old he was when he won his co-op title. I believe he was 55 and 10 months. So I'm still the oldest co-op world champion at age 56, because I won it in 2015 both times. Yeah, I got something on you, Dave. That's about it. Yes, sir. Bill Russell said the most important measure of how good a game I played was how much better I made my teammates. That's what I wanted to do. Is have the best team, not the best player. I always led by the example I tried to follow was follow the energy. So when I was like leading the organization, if somebody volunteered to do stuff, that's where the direction of the sport went. If the energy was there, we just followed it because we're a small sport, and the people that have the energy need to be the ones that direct the traffic for it. And last but not least, read Teddy Roosevelt's Man in the Arena. It's something that made me drive myself to not be afraid to do things even if I'm going to fail. I miss you, Mom.